My name is Owen and this is the story of how my seemingly ordinary life as a high school junior took an unexpected turn. That changed everything. Elijah and I had been friends since freshman year, sharing the same chemistry class where we were paired as lab partners. He was everything I wasn't: outgoing, athletic, and effortlessly popular with his sandy brown hair and perpetual smile. He was the kind of person who lit up every room he entered. I, on the other hand, preferred the quiet company of books and my computer, spending countless hours immersed in coding and science fiction novels. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when everything began to shift. The leaves were just starting to turn golden, and the air had that particular bite that marked the beginning of fall in New England. We had just finished our last period, and Elijah caught up with me. The parking lot. Hey, Owen called out, jogging towards me with his backpack bouncing against his shoulder. You still up for helping me with that calculus assignment? I nodded, trying to ignore the way my heart seemed to skip a beat when he said my name. This had been happening more frequently lately, and I'd been doing my best to suppress it. Yeah, of course, my parents won't be home until late anyway. The drive to my house was filled with Elijah's animated chatter about the upcoming football game and his latest dating drama with Sarah, his on again, off again girlfriend. I kept my eyes fixed on the road, offering the occasional nod or comment while my mind wandered to dangerous territory, like how good he smelled after practice or how his knee was casually touching mine as he shifted in the passenger seat. My house was a modest two-story in a quiet suburban neighborhood. As we walked in, Elijah made himself at home, as he always did, dropping his bag by the couch and heading straight for the kitchen. 3 years of friendship had made him comfortable enough to raid my fridge without asking. Your mom still making those awesome cookies? He called out while rummaging through the kitchen. Check the blue container on the counter, I replied, setting up our study space in the living room. The familiar routine felt both comforting and torturous. Every moment we spent together was simultaneously everything I wanted and a reminder of what I couldn't have. Elijah returned with a handful of cookies and 2 sodas, plopping down next to me on the couch. You're a lifesaver, man. I seriously don't know what I'd do without you for Cal. Miss Peterson's tests are killing me. I pulled out our textbooks, trying to focus on derivatives and integrals rather than the way his shoulder pressed against mine as he leaned in to look at the problems. We worked through the first few questions smoothly, with Elijah picking up the concepts quickly despite his claims of struggling. See, you're not as bad at this as you think, I said, watching him solve a particularly tricky problem. He looked up at me with that trademark grin of his. Only because you're such a good teacher. There was something in his voice, something different, that made me hold his gaze a moment too long. The air between us seemed to thicken, and I suddenly became hyper-aware of how close we were sitting. Elijah's expression changed slightly, his smile fading into something more uncertain. For a brief moment, I could have sworn his eyes flicked down to my lips. The moment stretched like taffy, sweet and tense, until Elijah abruptly cleared his throat and shifted away. So, what about the next problem? He asked, his voice slightly higher than usual. I forced myself to look back at the textbook, my hands trembling slightly as I turned the page. Right, let's look at implicit differentiation. But the atmosphere had changed. There was a new awareness between us, an electric current that made every accidental touch feel significant. Elijah seemed restless, his usual easy confidence replaced by something more nervous and fidgety. Maybe we should take a break, he suggested after another 20 minutes of stilted studying. Got any good movies? I nodded, grateful for the distraction. Take your pick, you know where they are. Elijah walked over to the entertainment center, browsing through our collection. I watched him from the couch, nodding, how he ran his hand through his hair, a habit he had when he was anxious. He selected an action movie we'd seen at least 3 times before, but I didn't comment as the movie played. We settled back into the couch, careful to maintain a safe distance between us, but somehow, as the minutes ticked by, that distance began to shrink, whether by conscious choice or unconscious gravity. We found ourselves drifting closer until our legs were touching again. Eric. Elijah's voice was barely a whisper, his eyes still fixed on the screen. Yeah, have you ever? He paused. Swallowing hard. Have you ever thought about guys like my heart? Stopped, then started again at double speed. What do you mean? He turned to face me then, and the vulnerability in his expression took my breath away. I don't know what I mean, or maybe I do, and I'm just scared to say it. Elijah. I started, but he cut me off. Sometimes I think about things I shouldn't about you. Specifically, his words came out in a rush, like he was afraid he'd lose his nerve if he didn't get them out quickly. And I know it's wrong, and I know should be thinking about Sarah, but I can't help it. My mouth went dry. It's not wrong, I managed to say, isn't it? I'm supposed to be straight. I have a girlfriend. I play football. I'm not supposed to want to. He trailed off, his face flushed. Want to what? I asked, barely breathing. Instead of answering, Elijah leaned forward slowly, his eyes searching mine. I stayed perfectly still, afraid that any movement might shatter this moment. When his lips finally met mine, it was soft and hesitant, nothing like the confident Elijah I knew. The kiss lasted only seconds before he pulled back, looking terrified. I'm sorry, he stammered. I shouldn't have. I cut him off by pulling him back and kissing him with all the pent-up longing I'd been harboring for months. This time there was nothing hesitant about it. Elijah's hands came up to cut my face, and mine found their way to his waist. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing heavily. The movie played on, forgotten, in the background. Elijah rested his forehead against mine, his eyes closed. I've wanted to do that for so long, he whispered. Me too. What do we do now? It was a loaded question, one that carried the weight of all our future complications. Sarah, our friends, our families, the entire social structure of our high school. But in that moment, with the taste of him still on my lips, I couldn't bring myself to care about any of it. We don't have to figure everything out right now, I said, though my mind was already racing with possibilities and potential problems. Elijah nodded, but I could see the conflict in his eyes. He shifted slightly, maintaining physical contact but creating enough space between us to think clearly. I have to break up with Sarah, he said finally, even if we don't figure this out, it's not fair to her. Are you sure? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady despite the hope blooming in my chest. Yeah, I've been using her as a shield, I think, to hide from what I really want. His hand found mine, fingers intertwining. But and we have to keep this between us for now. I'm not ready for. I know, I assured him quickly. I'm not either. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of stolen kisses and quiet conversations interspersed with actual studying. When we remembered our original purpose, when the sound of my parents' car in the driveway forced us to spring apart, reality came crashing back. The next few weeks were a delicate dance of public friendship and private intimacy. Elijah broke up with Sarah the following day, causing a minor earthquake in our school's social hierarchy. To everyone else, we appeared exactly the same, just two close friends who studied together and hung out after school. But behind closed doors, everything had changed. One particularly memorable afternoon, about 3 weeks after our first kiss, we were supposedly working on our history project in my room. Elijah was sitting at my desk and I was on my bed, but neither of us was paying much attention to the American Revolution. Come here, Elijah said softly. Pushing away from the desk, I moved to stand between his knees, and he pulled me down for a kiss that made my toes curl. His hand slipped under my shirt, exploring territory that was becoming familiar but still thrilling. We should actually work on the project, I mumbled against his lips, not making any move to pull away. Probably, he agreed, trailing kisses down my neck. But this is more fun. The sound of the front door opening downstairs made us jump apart. We had gotten better at this. Within seconds, we were in completely innocent positions, textbooks open and faces composed, when my mom called up to ask if we wanted snacks. But it wasn't always as easy. I saw the toll it was taking on Elijah, especially at school. He started missing football practices, his grades slipped slightly, and dark circles appeared under his eyes. The weight of our secret pressed heavily on both of us. One day, after a particularly tense football game where Elijah had played poorly, he showed Up at my house unannounced looking. Devastated I can't do this anymore he said as soon as I opened the door my heart plummeted what do you mean he pushed past me into the house packing in the entryway I can't keep pretending. Today in the locker room the guys were talking about Sarah asking why I broke up with her suggesting other girls should date and I just stood there lying. Knowing that the person I want to be with was sitting in the bleachers and I couldn't even look at you properly during the game because I was afraid someone would see I reached for him but he shook his head no let me finish I'm not saying I wanna end this I'm saying I can't keep hiding it not completely at least what are you suggesting I asked. Carefully maybe we could tell a few people we trust like my sister Emma she's always been supportive of everything and maybe your friend Maya. She seems pretty open-minded the suggestion hung in the air between us simultaneously terrifying and liberating after a moment's hesitation I pulled Elijah into a hug. Feeling him relax against me okay I said softly we can start with them the process of selectively coming out was like slowly opening a door that had been sealed shut Emma as Elijah predicted was incredibly supportive when he told her. She hugged us both and admitted she'd suspected something was different about her brother for years Maya's reaction was similarly positive though tinged with mild annoyance I can't believe you thought you needed to hide this from me she said. Punching my arm lightly I've seen the way you look at each other I'm not blind having these allies made a world of difference. Suddenly we had people to talk to places where we could be ourselves without fear. Emma would cover for us when we wanted time alone and Maya became expert at running interference at school but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect them. Our carefully managed secret was threatened one afternoon when Sarah walked in on us kissing in what we thought was an empty classroom after school we had gotten careless too comfortable with our small circle of safety the look of shock on her face quickly morphed into understanding then hurt so this is why she said quietly and Elijah flinched at the pain in her voice. Before either of us could speak she turned and ran we spent the next 24 hours in agony waiting for our world to implode but Sarah surprised us again she showed up at my house the next evening asking to talk to both of us. I'm not going to out you she said immediately seeing the fear on our faces. That's not my story to tell but you owe me the truth Elijah you owe me an explanation so we told her everything. How Elijah had struggled with his feelings how our relationship had evolved how scared we were by the end. She was crying but so were we I wish you had trusted me enough to tell me the truth from the beginning she said. Finally it would have hurt less than thinking I wasn't good enough that conversation with Sarah marked a turning point while we weren't ready to be completely open about our relationship we stopped being quite so paranoid about hiding it we let ourselves relax more around our friends. Stop maintaining such rigid physical distance in public gradually more people figured it out some reacted well others didn't Elijah lost a couple of football friends who couldn't handle it but most of the team surprised us with their acceptance my parents discovered the truth when they came home early one day and found us cuddled on the couch too engrossed in each other to hear their car that conversation was difficult but ultimately loving my mom cried my dad was quiet for a long time but they both assured me they loved me no matter what Elijah's parents took longer to come around but Emma's unwavering support helped bridge the gap by the time graduation rolled around. We weren't exactly out to the whole school but we weren't really in the closet either we existed in that gray area where people who wanted to know knew and those who didn't want to see it could pretend not to on graduation day. After all the ceremonies and photos, Elijah and I ended up back in my room, where everything had started months before the future loomed ahead of us. Different colleges, long distance, new challenges, but we faced it together. Do you ever regret it? I asked him as we lay on my bed, his head on my chest. That day when you kissed me, everything that came after. Elijah propped himself up on an elbow, looking at me with those eyes that still made my heart race. Never, he said firmly, it hasn't been easy, but loving you is the truest thing I've ever done. I pulled him down for a kiss, thinking about how far we'd come from that nervous first kiss over calculus. Homework we weren't perfect in our story wasn't over, but we had learned something valuable. Real love is worth the risk. Later that night, as we sat on my roof watching the stars, Elijah's hand firmly in mine, I thought about all the other kids like us struggling with their feelings, afraid to be who they are. I wished I could tell them that it gets better, that being true to yourself is worth the fear and pain, but for now I was content to sit there with the boy I loved, both of us a little battered, but stronger for it, facing whatever came next. Together, sometimes the best love stories aren't about grand gestures or perfect endings, they're about finding the courage to be yourself and finding someone who loves you exactly as you are.